What's going on, everyone? My name's Alex. That's my co-host, Eileen, and you guys are watching and listening to the Straight to the Chicane podcast, where we are talking and discussing the Japanese GP. I got that right this time, Eileen.
We're out in Suzuka.
We are. We're kind of on our matching reds. We got the matching car up top. We are. We're kind of going all in, apparently.
We are.
Big news, big weekend, boring race.
Yes.
A big weekend with the news that were coming out. I think we just got to tell them right off the top with it.
Yeah.
Yuki Tsunoda has been promoted.
You have been promoted.
Or if you want to look at it, as the glass half empty, is Liam Lawson's been demoted.
Yes.
So that's kind of the big news. We talked about it a little bit.
We did, yeah. We couldn't even, the news broke before we could even get the video out.
It was pretty much Tuesday because they had their board meeting. Red Bull had a board meeting on Monday, and there was just rumors were spilling all out. And then Tuesday, pretty much, it was all official. And that was when we were able to get our video released to the world.
I mean, it was, obviously, we recorded it right after the Chinese Grand Prix, and already in the paddock, the rumors were swirling that Yuki was going to be bumped to the seat so that, he could debut at his home Grand Prix.
Yeah, there's a lot of money invested, I mean, before the season started, there was talk of Honda and Yuki's management having $20 million on the line to help him come up to Red Bull, and then Red Bull said no, and then they brought that back to the table for this event. So I think money speaks a lot,
I mean, what a thing to do to someone's confidence, though.
Liam's? You think it's lowered?
I think everything is wrong here. I think I talked about the second Red Bull seat curse. Daniel Ricciardo cursed it when he left. And literally nobody's been able to maintain it. Think about how many teammates he's had.
It's been what, 5 or 6 or something like that?
Well, since Daniel?
Yeah.
I'm
counting Daniel.
Daniel, Checo, obviously, Pierre, Alex.
Pierre.
Uh-huh.
So 5.
It's
6 because it's
Liam, Yuki.
Yeah.
So 7. Okay, we had to do the math there.
Yep.
I don't know. In my opinion, I just feel like they're so big on Red Bull, promoting their internal, talent. So investing in their junior team, whatever. And it just, for me, has never set well that Yuki didn't get the seat from the beginning. I think he's proved himself at, obviously, AlphaTauri. He, performed against Liam half the season last year, not even half. And, he beat him. Okay. And so it's okay, but also in my opinion too, it's not a great look for Red Bull. It's not a great look to promote somebody and give them literally 2 races to prove themselves. And they are trying to say, oh, we could just see what it was doing to him and his confidence and this and that. It's your job to seriously support your driver. You made the decision to put him in there. Support him. Give him 5 races. I don't know. Did they make the decision just because it was Yuki's home race and they were like, oh, if we're going to do it, we have to do it now?
I think they just realized with the data that they had right away that there was an issue that even us fans can't see. I think I said this before. That's my opinion. I think that they just finally were he's not hitting any of the braking points the right way in this car. The car is too gnarly. And then what we saw this weekend, too, is Yuki even had trouble with getting the car to perform on edge on the top of the, and look where he qualified.
I know. Well, he made a mistake and, then he got out qualified by Liam. And so it's here's the thing is now there's so much that the drivers have to deal with going into it. Yuki gets the seat. So he gets promoted, Liam gets demoted, and then they go to the Japanese Grand Prix, and after getting demoted after 2 races, it has to do this huge press thing.
Yeah.
And sit there. I'm sorry, if I got demoted, don't ask me to do nothing. I'm not coming here with a smile on my face saying that you made a great decision, and I'm so happy to be part of this organization. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Imagine, put yourself in that person's shoes. So it is what it is, but also, at the end of the day, now Yuki's got to go in and have this huge pressure put on his back that if he doesn't perform or he has an off weekend, is he going to get fired?
Well,
is he going to get demoted?
They have said he has they've given him the seat for the year.
that's
So
all.
unless things really go downhill quickly, or
I don't think it will. I think,
I think he's I think he's finally established. I've always said, and I've said it previous years and previous seasons, that I think it takes a rookie driver at least 2 seasons to really get comfortable. You know what I mean? Because some of these tracks are harder than others. Yeah, you can go in the sim, you can sim train everything all you want, but in order to really perform at a high end with those cars, you have to have experience in the car in different types of weather conditions and all kinds of things. You're just not getting that in the sim.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that as a youngster. So in order to develop as a young driver, like very few people, like Max probably did a lot of training and driving when he was younger in the rain. Lewis Hamilton did a lot of rain driving with shitty tires when he was a kid. Like, you heard stories about all these things, right? So like there's few guys that can handle the rain, but they also have experience too. They've been in Formula One for years.
Right. Yeah.
So
no, I mean, it's very true. And I mean, it just kind of for me goes to justify, sure, like, is the demotion warranted? He definitely didn't perform practice, quali, and race on both race weekends. So sure.
Yeah.
But, and we obviously don't know what the conversation looked like behind closed doors, but I just feel like from a confidence level, and this is your team, like, you want the support and you're coming into a new team trying to understand it. Look at all the other drivers that are new. I expected Carlos to go to Williams and be like wiping the ground with Alex Albon.
It hasn't really happened yet.
And it hasn't. Albon has scored points every weekend.
Yeah, I mean,
Carlos
has
crashed
and not really performed great.
Right. He got points last weekend because of all the disqualifications, but it's like, we're giving him grace. Obviously, Lewis hasn't performed at Ferrari, and so it's Lewis Hamilton, so immediately he should be canceled and he needs to, be fired and he needs to retire and he's washed and he's this, like, Jesus Christ. But it's just funny to see, like, the difference between how we're, giving grace to some drivers but not to others. So, we'll see. I think I was excited to see Yuki get the opportunity, though. Yeah. Because I do feel like he earned it, and I feel like, he's definitely been consistent and has been performing. And he had a pretty good weekend up until qualifying.
Well, I mean, practices were okay. And honestly, it's kind of a skewed thing because practice one, I think the most laps were 12 or 13 laps by...
Practice was a wash all weekend.
It was. There was a lot of red flags, especially the first day on Friday for them.
5 red flags.
5 red flags. 4 of them of that day. 4 of them were all fire related because of grass.
So crazy.
And then one was a pretty big crash.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big crash.
That was pretty crazy, yeah. Jack Doohan crashed because he left the DRS wing open. Because he said that he did it in the sim. And so... and he found out, like, that's what I was hearing. He found out that you could go through, oh my God, I don't even want to laugh, go through the turn with the DRS wing still open. And so some people are saying that he just forgot to close it. Villeneuve was obviously one of the announcers this weekend. He said he was lazy. I swear to God, he said it like 5 times. Oh, he's just being lazy. Like, shut up. So he crashed, and it was pretty horrific.
It was.
And I mean, he had to get obviously medical clearance. Like, I don't even think they actually said what the G crash was.
I'm sure it was pretty high.
But it was almost like he went into the turn and didn't even brake.
Because that's the turn where you don't need to brake. Literally, just adding the downforce with turning the DRS off allows you to keep the full speed into the top of that turn, and then as you let off, you can start decelerating and then braking because it's such a elongated turn. Yeah, it was a pretty crazy crash. The car was pretty destroyed. In fact, they didn't even want to show it once it got to the pits because it was
so bad.
It was pretty bad.
I think I said that. I was like, it's amazing that these cars can be like destroyed and crashed into the wall.
Yeah, I'll take a car like that.
And they walk away. Obviously, with some type, I mean, they're shaken up. They're this, but
he was definitely shaken up. He needed a little bit of help walking around out and getting out, So,
but you're walking away from an accident like that when you think about us driving on the road and somebody hits you 20 miles an hour, and you could have a broken arm depending on how it hits your car. So, but he's another driver that there's a lot of pressure on him. And there's been a lot of talk in the media about him getting replaced before he even started race 1. Before he even started. Like, before at his home Grand Prix, they're like, oh, Colapinto, who's their reserve driver, is going to take over 6 races and there's something in his contract, blah, 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 blah. And so I just think he's feeling it too. And I just, I know it's a high intense sport and there's only 20 drivers that go into it. But my God, like I couldn't deal with that.
Yeah, that's too bad because it should be a little bit more of a developing thing. And if these young kids are not ready, then it just proves that some of them are not. Some of them are. Antonelli's performing.
Yeah.
Ollie Behrman's finally got into Q3, fairly performing. He has a lot less stress going on. Well, I would say even Antonelli has less stress too. I mean, he's kind of being father figured and kind of being sheltered over there at Mercedes.
But that's what I'm talking about, is the difference between how drivers are being supported too.
Yes, there's a big difference.
I mean, Ollie Behrman had a really bad first weekend, a lot of crashes. Like, we were like, oh my God, this is like a bummer to see, expecting to see him perform probably the best because he had a couple races the year before. And he bounced back. 2 great weekends in a row, Chinese GP, Japanese. Same thing with Kimi. Like, he's had some bad qualifying. He's made some mistakes. There's been some things that have happened, but he's definitely he has a good support system, you can tell.
Very good support system. I mean, still goes to high school. Still has math problems.
I know. He's not happy about his test, but he promised his mom that he would finish school.
Yeah. So, I mean, not a tough place to live, I can say. You're right. There is a big difference between nourishment but I mean, what are you going to do? Red Bull is always going to have that high intense pressure on their drivers because they have Max. And so they're going to compare everybody to Max, I
don't know who can be compared to Max.
He's top of the game. He's the best of the best right now. I would say he's the best driver in the world for the era that we're in right now.
It's unbelievable. Like, I'm sorry, but this weekend I think is just such a true depiction of how good Max is. Yeah. I mean, number one, they're like this. I would say people are saying they're the 4th fastest team right now, and I don't even know how he put it on pole this weekend. Like, I don't even understand where his lap came from. No, it was less than a 10th. It was like 100ths or something. Sure. But still, he was the last one to cross the line. And, the McLarens both had purple sectors, and all of a sudden Max just comes in and gets the fastest lap.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just whipping that car around. He said after, he was like, I almost crashed 5 times on that lap.
I'm sure because he's got that car right on the edge.
Like, he's just, but he's doing what a lot of people clearly can't.
In those cars.
And according to Alonso, would be that nobody can do what Max is doing. And I would say that's very true. I mean, look at obviously like all the Red Bull drivers that have just spoken out. I mean, I think even back to Alex Albon, like the car, nobody can drive it like Max can.
Sure.
So I feel like every episode I talk about how Max can just outperform that car.
I mean, he's got the most awareness right now. He's in his prime. If he's in the best car, he's the guy he's unbeatable.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously being in the 4th best car, he's apparently unbeatable. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot to be said about his driving technique and his skill set for sure.
Yeah.
He's good. The best part is, especially in the race today, they decided to pit him and Lando at the same exact time because it was all just a one stopper, and both coming out, and just his awareness of, he didn't push him off because they both left the exit of the pit at the same exact time. There was no pushing or anything like that. He just used the narrowing of the track to his advantage. And I think Lando was being aggressive and acting a fool. And
Max was ahead.
He was.
Max was ahead. Max had a slower pit stop because allegedly they were changing his wing.
Oh, change the pitch? Yeah.
Yeah, so they were like fixing that. So he came obviously out. Lando's at the end of the pit lane. And so he just drove straight through the grass. He didn't try to go on to the fast lane of the pit exit. He drove on the grass. And then he's like, he squeezed me. He pushed me wide. Like, bro, you drove straight. Like, you drove straight into the grass.
He did drive straight because the road narrows, and as you get onto the track, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, no. And
Honestly, that was probably the biggest highlight of the race.
you had fallen asleep at that point.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I was watching the race, obviously, and I was like, oh my God. I think I screamed. You woke up and you were like, what is happening?
I do remember.
Because it looked like Lando was going to lose control. That was the most exciting thing of the race, was like there was a little bit of something, a little wiggle.
A little wiggle.
And I mean, even post-race in the cooldown room, they were showing the highlights, and Oscar was like, is that it? Is that all that happened? And I think for us fans, we're like, so they do realize nothing happened. Like literally, they kept, I would say the highlights were that, which was lap like 21, which allegedly there was going to be rain on lap 20. So I think we were like waiting for that. Maybe that was just code to Lando that they were going to be boxing that lap. I don't know. They tried to pull the dummy and it definitely didn't work. I saw it. I was like, mm-mm. But other than that, it was like the same overtakes from Carlos Sainz shown for like P14, like 5 times. And really not much else. And then obviously we had the McLaren battle at the end.
Yeah, so let's talk about the McLaren battle a little bit, because there has been some topic on social media about...
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so Oscar Piastri, I think from what I've watched, seemed like he had the faster car. It was definitely within a half a second, 0.4 of a second.
Mm-hmm.
He could have definitely overpassed about 10 laps left.
There was 10 laps left, yeah. And the conversation was obviously starting. So
yeah.
You know, Max had been leading the race pretty much the whole time. Obviously, we had the pit stops, and so, you know, they had to work their way back through just based on who hadn't pit. But Lando was like a second to a second and a half, never really within the DRS window.
Yeah.
And obviously, Oscar was catching him quicker and quicker, and, you know, he's half a tenth, and he's like, okay, he's obviously in the dirty air, and he gets on the radio. And he's like, hey, can you have him speed up? Like, does he have any more?
Yeah, or more pace, yeah.
Yeah, or like, let's think about, you know, I think I have enough pace to go get Max. So 10 laps left. So, you know, a lap goes by, and obviously that we know the radios are delayed, but his engineer comes on and says, this is all Lando has. So that's his pace. So he can't push anymore is what the engineer is telling him.
Right.
So it's like, you know, what are they going to do? The announcers are talking about, okay, McLaren's going to switch. They're going to switch. I mean,
they should have switched.
You would think that you have the fastest car on the grid and 2 drivers in the front, in the top 2. You have a Red Bull that is, yeah, of course, being driven by Max Verstappen, but they should have been able to do something.
It's not like he was pulling away ever.
No,
right.
No. He was within range. I mean, but obviously, GP even said to Max, like, well, the McLarens are trying to work out what they're going to do. So you just, you know, head down and do what you do. Like,
right.
You know, that's the capability that they had, because McLaren's not going to make the decision. And, you know, I feel very strongly about this. I feel that they should have given Piastri the opportunity to try. And I understand that their teammates and like people are very passionate about, well, if he, you know, was so fast, then he should have just overtaken Lando. Okay, sure, that's whatever it is what it is. But also, if he is fast and you're able to get the win as a team and, you know, bank those points to, you know, be winning every race like McLaren should be, why wouldn't you give him the opportunity? If Lando doesn't have the pace, then he stays. What do you have to lose? The Mercedes and Leclerc was in P4. We're far enough back that they could take the gamble and do it. Give Oscar, you know, 8 laps to try and prove himself. And worst case, have them switch back on, you know, the second to last lap or last lap and let Lando have that position back. We've seen McLaren do it in the past. So why not fight for the win?
Yeah.
Are they happy with P2 and P3? I mean, it's a great haul of points. Of course, they're still leading the constructors. But I just feel like no one wants to try anything like there.
Yeah, I think it's still a little early in the season, and I think there was some inconsistencies on making a decision at McLaren for sure.
Definitely. I mean, and like, not to mention that, like, you're in this fight at the front, like Lando, the first mistake. Why did they pit them both at the same time? Like, I feel like I've never seen where the top 2 cars pit the same lap. Literally the same.
It does happen, though. I have seen it.
I mean, like, okay, pit to overtake. They tried the dummy. It didn't work, you know. But maybe, like, save 1 lap and see what you can do, you know. But I feel like that was their first mistake. Second mistake, what do you have? Like, what did they have to really lose? I, like, got into an argument with somebody online last night about it at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, why didn't they just give Oscar the chance to do it? And I get it. Like, I understand people are going to probably come for me because of it, but I don't know. I feel like we've seen it before. Like, we've seen it with Lewis and Valtteri, where I don't remember. I think it was Russia, 2019, maybe, where he was like trying to catch Charles Leclerc or one of the Ferraris, and he was like, "Okay, I think I have the pace." Valtteri let him by, couldn't get him. Last lap, literally last corner,
He let him back by.
he let him back by.
He did.
So I don't understand why they couldn't do it.
Because their team dynamic isn't as good as Lewis's and Valtteri's was.
Yeah, and they're just so worried about making the right decision, I feel like, that they don't make a decision.
Yeah, and that's not just them, though. You could say that about Ferrari in some cases.
But I guess here's the thing for me, too, is like last week in China, granted, the Ferraris both got DQ'd, but, you know, Lewis was struggling, and he got on the radio and was like, hey, I'm going to let Charles by because I don't have the pace. So it's like, I mean, if Lando that was it. He was flat out. His engineer came on the radio and he's like, hey, Oscar's got a little bit more pace. What are your thoughts? I mean, I guess we'd have to listen to the onboards to understand that, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what.
I'm on a tirade.
We don't know what Lando said either.
Right.
You know, and we don't know all of the situation. All we know is that it didn't happen.
And did they give up the win, you know? I just feel like based on his pace, the way that he was catching him, he was in dirtier air. I understand like he could have fought him, and he did try once, and he got close with an attempt to overtake and couldn't. But it's like, if you could, like, do you want him to have double the energy invested in overtaking 2 drivers when they could have just said, hey, go through, try for the push, get the win.
They could have did a slingshot, you know, like some Ricky Bobby shit. And
and Lando, you know, sure, like Lando would still probably be leading the drivers' championship.
Even if in third, exactly.
But now it's like Max is literally 1 point behind.
Yep. So it's going to be interesting. It's still early. So just finished race 3.
It is.
So
yes.
We get to go to Bahrain next, which is
our first triple header.
Yeah, which is early on. We don't have another sprint race for a little while though.
Till Miami.
Yeah, so it's a couple more weeks out. Another thing to kind of talk about is that we got to see Antonelli lead the race for a little while. So his first time leading a race.
First time.
And fastest lap.
He was the fastest man on track.
So, yeah, I mean, look, some rookies are looking pretty good.
Yeah. He beat Max's record. He didn't win. This was his final weekend to be able to, you know, beat Max's record of the youngest driver to get a win.
Yep.
But he's the youngest driver to ever have led a Grand Prix. And he got the track Grand Prix record or lap time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, pretty cool. Mercedes is like, they're like there.
Well, they've always been either like the third fastest team. They've always kind of been in the middle.
They've always been inconsistent, I would say. From track to track, it always varied.
Has been as of recent years, yes.
Yeah, and of course, we know the domination. But, you know, recently, I would say it would be up and down. You would never really know what you were going to get. I feel like certain weather, they would perform stronger, but they've been very consistent. And, you know, George and Antonelli have been pretty much finishing with each other almost every race. So I would be surprised if we didn't see Kimi win a race this year, just based on development. I think George is definitely the front runner, and he's going to be there. He's going to, you know, secure some wins for sure.
I think it'd be like one of those weird things, like things would have to go really, really right for him, and then
like a poor qualifying from George or something.
Yeah, and
right place, right time.
Right place, right time, or like a Monaco thing where like it's rainy, the pit window is just right.
Well, we've got Monaco this year. We've got 2 pit stops mandatory, so I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, that's going to help. That'll make it even more interesting because that is usually a very, very predominant like parade laps type style race.
Which this race pretty much is.
It is, which is disappointing. But typically there's a lot of weather that happens there, and maybe if it was a little bit wetter later in the day, we would have had a different outcome.
Or earlier, because I think it was raining all morning. But
It should have rained a little bit longer or something like that. You're right. It was a very normal.
There was a procession.
I think the best overtake was what Lewis and Hadar, or I can never say his name. Sorry, Hajar. Thank you. Like that overtake.
And Hajar's overtake on Carlos around the outside. That was good too. So
there was, but it wasn't that much. You know what I mean?
It really was not. No. Like you said, I mean, the top 6 finished in the top 6.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Lewis was up 1 point.
And then, I'm looking at the times too, and it's like they were all, the top 3 were all right around 2 seconds apart from each other. And then there was a gap to Leclerc.
Right.
Right. So.
Yeah, it wasn't the most exciting. I mean, I think there was a lot of like drama going into the weekend because we just really didn't know. But, at the end of the day, it was disappointing. Yuki finished out of the points. So, kind of getting back to that change. Yuki finished out of the points. Liam did finish behind him. So they both were out of the points. And Isaac Hajar now has the most points out of the 2 Red Bull racing teams, which is crazy.
So was he?
But please don't promote him because I'm like, I have a soft spot for him now. And I think that since the first race when he crashed out, I don't know. I just feel like I want to protect him.
Yeah. And I mean, just let him grow at Racing Bull.
He's so young. Just let him perform. It's interesting. Obviously, we went into the weekend. I feel like this is a Red Bull racing podcast, but we went into the weekend and obviously with all the drivers changes and stuff, they also announced that they were doing the white livery for the Red Bull.
Yeah.
So it was like, they're trying to trick us here. They're bringing 4 Racing Bulls to the track.
And what did you think of the livery?
It was good. For me, it's not the same white livery from Turkey in 2021.
Yeah.
And I think that the Racing Bulls, it's my favorite livery this year. I think they
favorite car livery?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they did a great job with it. I love how it slowly kind of fades into the solid blue, but it's little bulls in the back on the engine cap cover. And so I feel like it kind of got overshadowed for me. I get it. It was definitely a tribute to obviously Honda, to Japan.
Yep.
I think it looked good, but I still like the Turkey one.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. It wasn't super special to me. It didn't pop compared to the Racing Bull white. I think that one pops a little bit better.
Yeah, I think because it has the yellow.
I think
it has like the Red Bull colors.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I get it. It had the red dot. It was definitely the Red Bull was a tribute to Japan, and this being the last home race with Honda. Because next year they're not going to be with Honda; it's with Ford. So yeah, there's a changing of the guard type of deal. Yeah. So I think that was pretty good. What we really haven't talked about, I guess, was how some of these other teams are performing. So what I mean is we don't really talk much about Hulkenberg and them. They have kind of always been at the bottom of the field. Stroll's kind of, I don't know. What happened with Stroll? I need to know. Is there anything bad? Because he was a lap down, it looks like.
I think he used this as a practice session, this Grand Prix.
Because I wasn't paying attention to Stroll at all. So
Well, I don't think anyone was. Honestly, Aston Martin, man, the downfall this last year and a half has been pretty tough for them. But there's a lot of exciting things on the horizon, so we shall see. With Adrian Newey coming in, he obviously started a few weeks ago. But definitely tough. I mean, Stroll qualified in 20th. Alonso didn't have a great qualifying. He made it out of Q3, or Q1, sorry. But definitely tough race for both of them. And I think, they're just kind of let's get through this time, it feels like.
And they've been talking about that. This was just kind of a throwaway year already. So that's kind of why we probably haven't really talked much about it. And yeah, other than the AT and Newey thing, we'll see how next year goes because they will be a totally different team by then. And I'm pretty sure I just saw an article that...
And their wind tunnel just opened.
That, and then I think I saw that Lawrence Stroll is trying to buy more of the company, so he takes more ownership of it.
He did.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah.
So there are some things to come for them, and maybe next year we'll be talking about them more. But this year they're kind of a dud. I guess the other one would be.
I mean, I think with Stake, we knew obviously it's going to be Audi.
Yeah.
We knew that, which Jonathan Wheatley did start, I'm pretty sure, this past week. Who's going to be the new team? He's going to be the new team principal there. So, all the former Red Bull people are now in position at their new teams. So I think there's more to come there. I think we knew it was going to be a tough season. They lucked out in the first race, obviously with the weather and all the chaos and, disqualifications. Hulk had a good race. And I think we know he's a good driver. So more to come from that.
Yeah, he is a good driver. And so I get a little frustrated when I see him down and finished in 16th place. Because I think they should be higher. And I'm surprised that the car is being that bad because they're not even the best of the rest. They're just.
Well, he did beat one of the Racing Bulls.
Liam Lawson in his first time back in a Racing Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just need to, send some love and send some positivity to Liam Lawson. We know he can perform. So I think, and I think this is like, God, I'm back to Red Bull again. I think this is like with Checo. Checo was a great driver. And I think too, now it's like he got so much shit and everyone was like, oh, he couldn't perform. He couldn't do this. I mean, last year he did have a tough year, but last year in Japan, they won. It was a 1-2, but then it's like things definitely started. I would say Monaco was kind of the downfall for Checo, but it's the same thing. You start seeing so much in the media, people asking questions, people saying things, people, speculating what's happening, talking about your performance constantly, and not having that backing and not knowing what people are saying behind closed doors, that is starting some of these rumors.
Yeah.
That can, it can be the downfall for you. You have to be really strong-willed to be in a sport like this where it's so cutthroat. So, I think these younger drivers, like I hope that Liam gets the support at Racing Bulls, which I think he will.
I think he will. I think that's where he's going to be able to finish the season for sure.
Yeah.
He'll be finishing the season there.
He'll bounce back.
I think it's just tough because this season in particular, we have 4, or if you count him as 5 rookie drivers. But that's the thing is everybody's always elevated him a notch above the rookie driver. So we've all even put pressure on him just because of him having races last year under his belt. Mm-hmm. But he's still a young driver.
Yeah.
And now he's got, and so, yeah, it's just a weird situation with this many rookie drivers, and we can all point fingers and all these things, but he's had the most pressure out of all of them.
And
everyone else has had it pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, I think we kind of went into this season speculating with having so many rookie drivers, there was going to be like a lot of chaos. There was going to be like carnage.
There hasn't really.
There really hasn't been. There's not a lot of crashes. I mean, obviously Australia was tough because of the weather, but we saw veterans crashing there too. So, Alonso, Carlos, it really hasn't been as bad as I think we thought it was going to be. And I was one of those people that was like, oh man, there's going to be accidents all the time.
It's still early.
It is, yeah. Definitely.
Like you said, the triple header. We're going to Bahrain next, which is a little bit more easy for overtaking. It seems more passes happen there.
I think Saudi will see some probably craziness with qualifying.
Yeah.
Just because the way this track
is. When is Jeddah? I'm curious. I forgot.
It's the last race in the triple header.
So
we're going to Bahrain, then we're going to Saudi.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeddah.
Yeah. So I think that is going to.
I know. Yeah. But who's looking forward to going back there is Ollie Behrman because he finished P7 last year.
In a Ferrari.
Hey, still. Listen, he finished in the points today.
He did. And now he qualified in Q3 and everything he's looking good. I've been talking about him for a while.
He was good.
But I want to talk briefly a little bit about Ferrari. Like, what was happening on today? Like, they just kind of stayed where they were. We're
just glazing over Ferrari.
We are. They're,
I think, okay, so I know, obviously, we've all talked about the disqualifications.
Yeah.
I know that this weekend, they were running their cars higher. And because obviously Lewis, his skid plank was...
It's the second time it's happened to him, 2 different teams, but yeah.
Yeah. So their cars were a little bit higher. I think Charles had, like always, had a good qualifying. Lewis didn't have a great qualifying. And I think the pace just wasn't there. Like, at the end of the day, first stint, I felt like, Charles was kind of in the window, but then you definitely saw the gaps just kind of get bigger and bigger.
Oh.
Lewis was on a different strategy, which I thought was good, and I thought it was going to work.
Starting with the hards?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be great. Like, oh, he's going to run those hards like for a while. Well, obviously, this was at the point where the front runners had already pit. So Antonelli was first, Hamilton was second. And I was like, okay, Hamilton should be able to go longer. So Kimi's definitely going to pit first.
Yeah.
Hamilton pit before Kimi did with his medium. So I was a little bit surprised by that.
That is surprising because that should not have happened. You're right. Like Lewis should have been able to go much, much later, deeper into the race.
Yeah.
With those tires, and so that when he had the mediums on, there would have been a huge offset.
And I thought that there was gonna be, and he was getting within that window. He was like within DRS when Kimi finally came out on hards, and I think it was because the tires hadn't warmed up yet.
Right.
And Lewis was catching him, but then he finished like 5 seconds behind Antonelli. Antonelli was he was so fast at the end. He was closing the gap to Russell.
He finished, I'm looking at it right now.
He was fastest man on track.
It was, Antonelli finished 18 seconds behind Verstappen, and Hamilton finished 29 seconds behind. So 11 seconds ahead.
Yeah, Antonelli was quick at the end. Once he got
that color light,
the tires dialed in,
and the car was out of gas.
He was ready to go. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, Lewis said post-race, he was like, listen, it felt good out there. I think there's still some learnings that we have with the car. Obviously, we knew about the ride height. But the interesting thing is both Ferraris on their last lap where they have to go around and they have to pick up the tire marbles.
Mm-hmm.
They both drove strategically the entire lap to pick up as much as possible.
So I could be overweight or whatever it was.
Yeah. And they're so nervous. I'm like... But nobody got disqualified, thank God.
As of yet, which has been a long day because yes.
Yes, I think these are official results.
Yes, you're right.
I mean, it's a bummer. They did move up in the constructors, so they are P4. Obviously, they started off, pretty poorly and then having the DQ. So, they were definitely on the softer side. Lewis, I think, moved up one position, so there's a little bit of progress, but, it's definitely the Constructors' Championship. They're far off. So hopefully, Bahrain is a little bit of a better track for them.
Yeah.
We need to see Ferrari on the podium.
Hopefully soon.
Yes.
We need something here. You're right about that. We need a little bit more of a shakeup because it is kind of in the Constructors' Cup. McLaren's kind of starting to run away with it a little bit more. They're starting to get a little bit of a gap because they are very much consistent compared to the rest of the teams. So we need to see a little bit of a change. I would agree with that.
It's a long season. There's 21 races to go, multiple sprint races. There's a lot of points to be had, probably a ton of upgrades. I don't think Ferrari brought their new floor to this race, but they're bringing a new floor, I think, to Bahrain. So we'll see what happens. I mean, listen, they're both great drivers. I know people after qualifying on Saturday were all over social media talking about how Lewis shouldn't be in the seat and this and that. And I
don't pay attention to that.
I'm like, dude, if you can't support the driver on a bad day, then you don't deserve to be here when he's winning. So I'm going to pin your comment and I'm going to come back to it. But it just drives me crazy, the things that get said. But, I think we haven't seen the best yet. And I think that they've all been pretty vocal, Fred included, that there was a ton of hype, obviously, with Lewis coming to, Ferrari. It was we're going to win this season. We're winning both, championships. And listen, there's a lot of time left for things to happen. I mean, Red Bull was winning every race at the beginning of the season last year. McLaren won the Constructors. Lando had a charge to be able to fight for the Drivers' Championship, too. So it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to continue to see, cars develop. So I don't want to rule Ferrari out. Not just because they're our team, but, we'll see what happens.
Yep. And like you said, next week is Bahrain, a more traditional track they've been to many, many times. Yep. So I think, the teams have a better understanding of what's going to happen there. We're going to be starting race week right away. Mm-hmm. We'll see you guys in 1 week time. I feel pretty good about this. I think we've digested a whole bunch of stuff and talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Is there anything that we're missing?
No, I mean, I think the only other comment, I guess, is driver of the day was Yuki. I don't know if this is paying homage to him, but driver of the day, for me was not. I would definitely give driver of the day of the weekend to Max.
Yep.
And
That's an easy one.
very well deserved. So just an unreal race weekend from him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
If I didn't talk about Red Bull enough, I just got to close it out with the great job, Max Verstappen. He's leading the team. All 61 points are coming from him. And the team and Max Verstappen are ranked P3 in the constructors. It could just be his name.
Yeah, you're right about that. So I guess we'll keep it short and sweet kind of this week. We'll see you guys in 1 week time.
Yes.
We'll be discussing Bahrain. So until then, see ya.